So I hope all of you had a great experience witnessing Professor Stephen Marks and his journey into the law. Now the next thing is we will have an official release of BA Legal Studies Honours Program, and I really thank you all to be a part of it, and I will request Professor Stephen Marks to release the brochure.
Alright, as it was said, we are today launching a new program known as Bachelor of Arts Honours in Legal Studies, specifically meant for people who want to have a stronger grounding in law even before they decide whether they want to become a lawyer or not. The purpose of this degree is to, in many ways infuse interest among young people who may not have made up their mind to become a lawyer in their life, but the study of law can help them to decide whether they want to become a lawyer or not. And if they choose not to become a lawyer and end up doing other degrees, the knowledge of law will help them to pursue various walks of life, various study programs. Unique program, first of its kind in India. Many parts of the Western world has a program of this kind. So we're very fortunate that Professor Marks will be formally releasing the launch of the program and the program brochure. I want to invite my colleagues who are here, who have worked hard. Can I request Suruchi and give them a hand? This is the entire office of admissions for the law school. Each one of them have contributed to this launch of this program, so I'm going to thank all of you. Steve, you can formally read.
Yeah, this is your future.
Encourage all of you, whatever is in your mind, whether it relates to a study of law or not, relates to lecture or not. But if you ask questions which relates to the lecture delivered by Professor Stephen Marks, it will be great. And both Professor Steve and Professor Raj will be answering all your questions. So feel free to raise your hand and ask questions.
Listen, if you don't ask questions, we lock up your door till you ask questions. We don't let the speaker or the audience leave the room without questions are asked, so that no speakers go without being challenged.
That law restricts freedom, and in India there are many laws for the protection of journalists, which are not for the protection of journalist people, but for the people who are not getting the proper rights. But due to this, the rights of journal category is also restricting in many ways. So how can our law be changed, or there will be some implementations in these laws to protect the rights of journalists also?
Immigration policy, or you're talking more generally? If you can clarify, we can answer
I'm
that.
talking all journalists, not that particular reservation.
So, no, I want to understand that. Are you suggesting that the laws that are intended to protect people who are vulnerable are affecting the law, affecting others? I mean, I want to understand your question.
Yeah, I'm just talking about the same thing, that these laws for the protection of the vulnerable people and the categories which are not like untouchables and all. So these are somewhere restricting the rights of journal people too.
How? Can you explain to me? I want to understand that. Because those laws are protecting people who are themselves violated, they are suffering, and so those are anti-discriminatory laws which are intended to make sure that they don't suffer. How is affecting people who are not suffering from discrimination?
The main right when they get particular reservation for something.
Yeah, so that's why I asked you. So you're talking about reservation, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. That was my first question. Thank you. So it's a very fair question, and I'm going to ask you also to respond to the affirmative action dilemmas in the US. So I think it's a very important point you're raising, which is that if your concerns are that those people who belong to, let's say, scheduled castes and scheduled tribes and even other backward castes or OBCs, the reservation policies that our country has introduced over the years somehow compromises and puts those people who may not fall under the category of those reserved castes to be able to get the benefits of education and profession. Is that right? Is that your question? Please sit down. Let me try to answer this question. It's a very important question and it's a fair question. So the history and context of affirmative action in India, in the US they call it affirmative action. In India we use the word reservation. Is that the origins of it is actually from the Constitution of India itself. The Constitution of India, when you study, when you study the BA Legal Studies course, you will be introduced to the Constitution of India. The Constitution of India, in Article 14 of the Constitution, talks about right equality. In Article 15 and Article 16 of the Constitution, specifically talks about different types of schemes and possibly frameworks that will enable people who have been historically discriminated and have been deprived of an opportunity to receive education. How do we give them those rights today? So the idea of any policy relating to affirmative action, the philosophy behind that is, how do you deal with historical prejudices, historical oppression? And it is a fact in our country that for thousands of years in this country, Dalits have been discriminated. People who belong to certain castes have been discriminated, deprived of education. Social discrimination has prevailed for centuries in this country. No serious individual contests that. Now the question that we have to discuss, and I want all of you to be like parliamentarians. You're all MPs, and this is a parliament. We have to think, how do we deal with this injustice? Because you have not done this injustice. Many generations ago, people have committed this injustice. And how do you deal with such vast injustice today so that now these people who we are talking about have not received education like how you and I have received education. They have not given the opportunity to go to good schools like you and I have gone to. They have not become competent through the regular process of education to compete like you and I, to be able to take the examination and do well in that process. So they are already so weakly situated that if you treat them like you and I, we will inevitably create a sense of injustice because we will be ending up treating unequal people equally, which will in fact perpetuate inequality. So Article 14, 15 and 16 of the Constitution of India enables the state to create provisions with a view to making sure that those people who have been historically discriminated for whatever reasons need to be brought into the mainstream with a view to empowering them for education and jobs. Of course, in India, the Mandal Commission recommendations essentially implemented this to enable the people who have been historically discriminated. However, a very important catch is here. Those those provisions of affirmative action or reservation are never intended to be a permanent solution. Meaning that the hope is at a point of time in society when people who were discriminated in the past would achieve a certain level in their own journeys, in their own educational and professional journeys, this measure need not continue. That was the vision. Dr. Ambedkar articulated that vision in the Constituent Assembly. Himself was part of a community which had faced those historical prejudices. Today, this evolution has actually gone into public policy. How many of you know in reservation policy in India, there is a concept of creamy layer? Have you heard of it? There is a concept of creamy layer. This concept of creamy layer is a unique form of public policy intervention to ensure that the benefits of reservation, the benefits of affirmative action goes only to the most needy people. So, for example, and I am going to give you a very important example. Let's say some of you we belong to the OBC category. Okay? Now, if you belong to the OBC category, you will normally get reservation in certain contexts. But if your parents are having certain jobs or certain income or certain types of privileges already, you will fall under what is known as a creamy layer, and you will not get the benefit of reservation even though you belong to the OBC category. This is a good example of a public policy intervention that the benefit of reservation should go to only the people who are needy and not to all. Now the controversy that has happened in our country is, or rather it's prevailing is, the creamy layer concept has become applicable only for OBCs and not for SCs and STs. And there are scholars and others who argue that we need to extend the creamy layer category to SCs and STs so that, let's say, there's a judge of the Supreme Court of India, his son or daughter, he is obviously privileged, the daughter is privileged, should not get the reservation benefit. In the current law, the OBC categories only will apply the creamy layer. The creamy layer concept does not apply to SC/ST. So the goal ultimately is, and I want to end by saying, that the goal and objective of any affirmative action is to build a society that is more egalitarian and that fulfills the constitutional goal and promise to build equality. And equality does not mean treating everybody equally. Equality means that you treat relatively equally situated people equally. That also means that if people are inherently unequally situated, you cannot treat them equally because that will amount to perpetuating inequality. And that is the constitutional, legal and moral justification for affirmative action policy or reservation policy. I'll invite my colleague and friend Steve to share a bit about the US experience.
Thank you very much. The concepts are somewhat similar, but there's a concept I'd like to introduce that you may not have heard of. It draws on Latin, and you'll find that Latin is often used in law. De jure and de facto. Discrimination can be banned by law, and when it is banned by law, it is banned de jure. There is equality that is established de jure by the law. But if sociologically people are still excluded in education, housing, jobs, and so on, that's called de facto discrimination. So the affirmative action policies that the Vice Chancellor just described that have evolved in India have also undergone a similar evolution in the United States practice, at the time of the adoption of the Civil Rights Act that I referred to you in 1964, discrimination and segregation were eliminated de jure. But de facto, they still existed. People couldn't get jobs on an equal basis. People didn't get access to education on an equal basis, including to universities like my own. People didn't get access to housing because of the de facto exclusion. And I didn't give credit to somebody else when I was just talking about the influences that led me to this career in using law to try to change the world. My own father, it just occurred to me hearing Raj talk about affirmative action, was on the board of the Urban League, the purpose of which was to utilize affirmative action in order to overcome de facto discrimination. Now, Raj is also quite right, we have the same problem. That may be true for a certain period of time until such time as the historical discrimination is no longer as acute as it was. This is happening in my own university today. You'll find this in the media quite extensively. A lawsuit was brought against Harvard University by a group of Asian activists claiming that East Asian applicants for admission to Harvard were being discriminated against because of Harvard's affirmative action policy. The court has just rendered its judgment in the case, and fortunately, the affirmative action policy is still in place. But it's a very delicate matter. We do not have reservations in the sense of what we call a quota, so that we say 15% of the students admitted must be African American or Hispanic. But that's the objective we want to achieve. We cannot achieve it by setting quotas. We achieve it by allowing race to be one of the considerations that enters into the broad, complex picture of the selection process. This is what was challenged by Asian students who felt that they were being discriminated against, and the affirmative action policy has so far been maintained. But it's the same issue. This is occurring in education, in housing, in access to jobs. How do we find the ways and means of overcoming historical discrimination that takes the form of de facto discrimination today? And we're both confronting the same thing and pursuing it. Fortunately, we are at the stage where we're discussing the details of at what point have we done enough. So that means that there's some evidence that progress has been made, but not enough has been made. On this campus, I've heard the use of the term apartheid with respect to allies. So that's something to stop and think about. Is there de facto apartheid today regarding the Dalit population? Is enough being done? This university has a very progressive inclusion policy and has issued a statement on this topic. At this campus, international people have adopted 2 Sonipat declarations on leadership for future universities, which have very strong language on the need to ensure access to education, including for persons who are historically deprived access. So, good question.
More questions here, this side.
Sir, how can I change the world with the help of law? For example, the China autonomous country, the struggle is going between Hong Kong and China. How can with the help of law I can solve that? One teenage died also in that.
Fantastic question. We will answer that. It's a beautiful question. How can we change the world? How can we change the world? How can we change the world when powerful countries such as China and many other countries too are dealing with issues relating to Hong Kong and other places? Thank you for that. I will answer that. We'll take a few questions and
that changing the world through law. So I will ask you that why is UN not taking steps against the terrorism and the countries which are facing such situation like Syria, many civilians and innocent people are dying harshly, and they are like mass murder all over the world. So can you?
Thank you so much. That's another fascinating question. The Mark has done a lot of work on that. That's a big no. I mean, for any question, how about this? This side is a quite dormant here. We need to make this side more active. Please.
We know that some policies that are issued by the government are not right. But even if we channel out our voices, some of the cases, policies given by the government cannot be changed by us because most of the majority prefer to take over a stable yet wrong government over a government which cannot make decisions choices.
It's a fascinating question. I want you to hear this. She's asking a very, very thoughtful question. So, did you hear that, Steve? Okay, her question, if I understand correctly, is that how do we deal with the situation where sometimes governments make decisions and they are elected governments, majority have elected those governments, and those governments make decisions which you think are not right. And what do we do in those situations? Am I right? So it's probably the most important question in the world today. What you asked is the most important question that is facing the world today, that how do we deal with democratically elected governments doing things that you as individuals or let's say enlightened members of society believe that it's not right. What do we do about it? Great question. We'll come back. One more here, up there, please.
The right to information. But earlier some changes were taken. And the changes were that government, if I will impose any, if I will impose RTA, then the government will provide only that much information what they feel is correct or they feel that is more true.
Excellent.
Then what is the benefit? Our right is violated, sir. Then what is the
remedy? Beautiful question. Absolutely.
From law, I wanted to know that why are our country or any other country not implementing any laws regarding the refugees which enter in our country without any information and things. So why are laws are not being implemented?
Got you. Refugee law. All right. See, that's for you. Refugee law. Please next.
I have a very common question. It's like many people in our country or persons, they are opting law as a career.
All right. Silence, please. Silence, please. I know it's exciting. I know.
And who have been a lawyer. And they are not getting a better cases or any job. So we are like all of us are very afraid to opt it as a career. So what's
Okay.
your opinion?
What is the future of law as a career? Right? What are the kind of jobs that are going to be there for lawyers?
Because many people usually want to opt a lawyer with experience one, not the one.
I will answer that question. Perfect question. All right. Any more? Any more? We don't want to leave anybody unanswered. Please. Please, please, please. Mike is coming. Mike is coming. All right. Silence, silence, please. Silence, silence, silence. May I request silence?
So as you know, the headquarters of UN is in USA, but why does the law does not work on Guantanamo Bay, which is situated in
Guantanamo Bay. See, why this law is not applicable in Guantanamo Bay? Yeah, Guantanamo. Yeah. Thank you for that. Any other question? You have an opportunity here. Please, one more. I have 2 minutes.
Sir, SEBI, Security and Exchange Board of India,
Wow.
independent organization, and NSSO, National Sample Survey Organization, unit of RBI. These all are, and CBI also, all are independent organizations.
Correct.
But nowadays, government what is doing, limiting their powers.
Fantastic question. Another round of applause. I think you can add list as well. You can add CBI, you can add even judiciary. So your question is,
We will not be able to get to know whether corruption is on its peak or it is demolished.
so the question that she's asking is, the independence of institutions in India are threatened.
Yes.
What do we do about it? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, we'll answer the question. Alright. Thank you so much for answering.
I am truly amazed. I hope we've scheduled to go until 6 p.m. I think for these answers. So I hope you can all stay. Let me just make a few brief points relating to the earlier discussion on great powers and their impact, whether it's China or Russia or the United States or other countries. This is a confrontation. I'm going back now to the Charter of the United Nations that I showed you in my first slide that talks about the sovereign equality of states is a principle of the United Nations. Now that is a fiction because in fact we know states are not equal. However, de jure, since we're using de jure and de facto, under international law, all countries are supposed to be treated equal. So when countries like China or the US are exercising undue influence on other countries, it is a failure of the international system to respect the principle of sovereign equality, which is an additional reason to want to devote yourself to the use of law to change the world. On the subject of terrorism, I don't know if the question was aimed at the prevailing idea, the predominant narrative that the problem in Kashmir today is the result of Pakistan's fomenting of terrorism in the territory. If that's the question, I think it requires a much longer debate. If it's the general question of terrorism in the world, this is an issue that is a priority concern of the international community and that affects all countries. Much too complex an issue to answer in one question. I'll give you one concept though. There is in the United Nations an agenda item in the Human Rights Council called Respecting Human Rights While Combating Terrorism. It's an interesting concept that says that as we proceed with addressing the issues of terrorism in the world, including using force against terrorism, how do we respect human rights? And I suspect that the person who has that mandate will also have to examine the situation in Kashmir. Is it possible, is it legitimate to deny human rights in the issue of a claimed struggle against terrorism? Tough thing to think about. I would urge you to reflect on it. I'm afraid if I go into the majoritarianism, well, the majoritarianism issue suggests another problem. The term was not used, but about 8 or 10 countries are characterized by populist leaders who have been elected and are exercising power in a way that resembles the behavior of authoritarian regimes. It's a very complex phenomenon that challenges the rule of law. And once again, far too complex to answer in a few words. I would say that it is part of reflecting on changing the world through law to understand what are the constraints on regimes that behave in the way that Brazil or the United States or Russia and China and so on are behaving by having charismatic leaders that are exercising their authority in autocratic ways. Guantanamo, no doubt about it. The behavior of the United States in carrying out acts of torture in Guantanamo Bay, and primarily for committing the human rights violation of arbitrary arrest and detention and mistreatment of prisoners, is a clear violation of international law and constitutes an international crime. Efforts are being taken around the world to prosecute the perpetrators, including senior officials of the United States government, through what is called universal jurisdiction. So study law, and you'll understand what universal jurisdiction is. I don't have time to go into it. So I'll give the mic back to Raj to answer the other question.
All right, thank you so much, Steve. Let me start with the question there. So the right to information question, which is a very important question. The purpose of the right to information legislation was to improve transparency and accountability of the power holders, to be able to share information so that people have informed understanding of what becomes the basis for decision making. Now, unfortunately, governments, regardless of whichever political party is in power, become very uncomfortable when it comes to individual citizens seeking information. So it's not just this government. Governments before, even the previous government which introduced the right to information legislation, always attempted to bring in amendments so that the RTI becomes less as a tool for people to seek information, so that the scrutiny of the citizenry on the functioning of the government and the powers that be is limited. There's no other way other than to constantly be vigilant about it as informed citizenry, as future lawyers, but also future enlightened citizenry. We need to be constantly vigilant about these threats, be it as members of civil society, media, and other places. In fact, the only one aspect of the downside is that unfortunately, whenever you introduce a framework like this, there are always going to be some people who will try to misuse the RTI. And genuinely, there are civil servants and others who at times feel that this becomes a tool for certain amount of abuse as well. And then abuse and the process related to abuse can create a lot of what is known as transactional cost or delays or time on the part of the functioning of the government. But I believe, like you, I share that despite those aspects of misuse, RTI and right to information as a law is the most democratic and impactful and influential pieces of legislation that we've ever had in post-independent India, and we intend to make it better. The future, of course, of RTI is that more and more aspects of the government should become already in public scrutiny. The idea of freedom of information, that you don't need to ask it, it's already there. Things are put on the website or things are given away. So more and more information is already shared about how the government takes decisions or how public authorities using powers. Then you don't even need a powerful RTI because things are already out there. The second question that I think you have is a very important question. Independence of democratic institutions is the foundations of constitutional governance. You cannot develop any form of constitutional governance without assuring independence of institutions. Like all of this, we need to recognize that vigilance and eternal vigilance by a vibrant civil society and independent media, and also young people like you is the greatest antidote for people who will undermine the autonomy and independence of institutions. Independent institutions have been threatened, but this threat to independent institutions transcends political parties, and so we need to constantly be vigilant about it. Answering your question, I think your question is a tough one because what do we do when elected governments end up doing things that think it's wrong? Well, to begin with, I think we need to invest in what I call, let's say, enlightened, responsible citizenship. We need to have more and more discussions surrounding why we think certain things that governments do are not in the best interest, and to engage in some form of discussion that will ultimately help us in understanding the nature of democracy, but also in that process fine-tuning it for the future. Because the strength of any democracy is the ability of people to democratically change the government as well. And so it's the idea of this whole engagement is that if we are not satisfied with what any government does, we have to invest in that. We have to talk about it. We have to galvanize social consciousness surrounding it. We need to make people understand why we think that certain policies of the government is not in line with our own aspirations. The only way by which we do, because this is also the only democratic and constitutional way. Any other attempt to do anything in the form of violence or other forms of undemocratic means is also unconstitutional and even more ineffective as well. Alright, have I covered everything before we wind up? Can you check it once again? Semi and Syria is the same issue. We talked about independence of institutions. Have I answered all the questions? Have we answered all the questions?
Yes. Sir,
Sorry, please.
about the careers. Mr. Careers.
See, you missed it. So, can you check it once again? Well, your question is also this question is very important. I strongly believe the future of India and to some extent the future of the developing world, but also the world at large, is going to be shaped by people who have the study and the knowledge and the commitment to the rule of law. The first is, as a principle, knowing about the law helps you to become an enlightened and an empowered citizenry. But beyond that, the way in which India as a country is growing, when it comes to our aspiration to build a $5 trillion economy, where the manufacturing sector, the services sector, and all our sectors are going to significantly expand, and we are going to compete with the best in the world, the foundations of that economic future will depend upon our ability to have a strong and effective legal system. The strong and effective legal system, which will serve as the bulwark for building a social and economic order, is going to be based upon laws and legal institutions. First. Second, we are increasingly going to move towards a rule of law society where rules and regulations matter. Today, unfortunately in India, rules and regulations are to a large extent, they get violated, laws get violated, and people have lesser respect for the rule of law. As we look at the future, we are going to find more and more rules and regulations which will be impacting our life, and people will be made accountable for those rules and regulations. Third, we are also moving into a society where the private sector is going to play a very strong role. Just imagine 30, 40 years ago, start looking at what we were using as consumer durables or the services that we obtain. It was largely led by the state and the government only, including our aeroplanes to shopping to everything. But today there's been a tectonic shift. We are moving towards a very strong private sector led development. That means that we need to be conscious of how laws will play a very important role, because it is possible that the private sector led development can lead to what is in scholarly circles talked about as crony capitalism, or in other words, to what people will talk about people engaged in greed, in the dominance of greed as an aspect of private sector behavior. That can be only conditioned through law and legal institutions. The fourth is technology. Today, for example, new situations are emerging in the fields of artificial intelligence, robotics, machine learning, and you are, in many ways, we don't know what the future is going to be. You are an e-commerce generation. You grew up at a time when you could pretty much order things online. Lots of these things are not regulated. They are going to have huge significance. Driverless cars. How many of you know about driverless cars? Imagine when India begins to have driverless cars. Imagine the kind of situation. You know Biswa mean? How many of you know Biswa mean? Biswamil is the corner of Sonipat, right? Imagine in Biswamil there are 20 driverless cars roaming around. Imagine the kind of legal issues that might potentially arise, including the thought of negligence and the kind of legal implications that are going to have. So technology and technological advancement is going to create huge opportunities for lawyers. So the kind of expansion of legal services and legal opportunities is going to be mind-boggling. And the fifth is about all these new developments that have emerged will also have implications for privacy, cyber security, threats that are relevant for. So it's not just all these developments are going to be only positive. The negative and adverse impact of these developments will need to be conditioned by law, limited by law, regulated by law, and facilitated by law. And that is why the future of legal profession is so strong, because who is going to do this? Lawyers are going to do it. Those who have been trained in law are going to do it. Even if you're not a lawyer in the form of having an LLB degree, the knowledge of law in business, in policy, in almost all aspects of careers that you may choose, the knowledge of law will help you to understand and respond to those public policy choices that governments and individuals will have to make. So in a way, I want to summarize by saying the future of law and legal profession is so bright and so strong, and each one of you will play a big role as change agents. So you will change the world through law. Thank you very much. I want to present a small token of appreciation to my colleague, Professor Stephen Morris, for his lecture. I would like to invite all the teachers who have come from the schools here. Can you please come to the stage? We would like to present a token of appreciation. All the teachers and mentors, all of you who have come here, can you please come to the stage? We would like to honor all the teachers who have come. Alright, all the students here. So I want to say this to you. You know, we are, I see this as a part of our, community, fraternity. We are all educators. And I must say that teachers are, unfortunately, in our country, least valued. Not just by students probably think them better, but the larger society do not understand and appreciate the value and importance of teachers. And this non-appreciation of the value and importance of teachers transcends across governments, policy thinking, compensation, appraisal, salaries, and it boils down to respect in society. So I want to say this because before I say anything, I want to ask a question to all of you. And this question I have asked to every student in the country I have spoken. I have spoken to over 10,000 students across India. And I asked the same question. And I'm going to ask the same question to all of you in front of your teachers. How many of you among the students would like to become a teacher? 1, 2, 4. Alright, okay? So approximately there are 300 students in this room. And if I were very generous about this data, 10 of you are wanting to become teachers. The same data is applicable in Kanyakumari, Nagaland, in Kashmir, wherever I go, from IITs to IIMs, from Bloom School to Well Boys, Well Girls to Sanskrit to Vasant Valley, everywhere I go, the situation is like this. Less than 1% to 2% of the students wanting to become a teacher. Now, the reason I say this is, when you are young, just imagine when you are a first grader, a Second way, if I do the data analysis there, 50% of you or more will aspire to be a teacher. You would have, because your teacher was your idol, your inspiration. Over the years, something happens, and something unfortunate happens in the course of our education system. And that is what we want to address. We want you to recognize the extraordinary contribution, the thankless contribution, the huge amount of personal and professional sacrifices that these teachers of you, day in and day out, engage to inspire you, to educate you, to empower you. So give them a loud applause.